Hi everyone, my name is Aiden Wickman. I am a graduate student studying instructional design here at SUNY Brockport. I'm so sorry I wasn't able to make it live, but I'm glad I'm here in video form. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm here to talk to you about microaggression in the K-12 environment. So, a little background about me is, like I said, my name is Aiden. I am currently a fourth grade teacher in downtown Rochester, New York, as well as a graduate student full-time. I chose instructional design because I figured it was interesting to me to begin with, but the more I spend time studying it, the more I realize how incredibly important it is to my field that the instruction is designed well and equitably. And it's super important to have well-designed instruction. Before we actually dive into the meat of my presentation, which is microaggression in the K-12 environment, I do want to thank you quickly for your attention. I know, especially if you are a K-12 educator, your attention is a very, very valuable commodity, and I don't want to waste it. So let's go ahead and get started. So if you are a K-12 educator, you are fully aware that we as teachers are not just sources of information for students. We as teachers play an extremely large role in our students' emotional development as well as their academic. And with this responsibility comes the unfortunate reality that some students have learned some unkind behavior in the form of racism, classism, misogyny, and we as educators in the K-12 field are at the forefront of creating formative moments in the future citizens of our world. And one actionable way that we can dismantle these institutionalized discrimination is beginning with recognizing and eliminating microaggression from the educator's vocabulary. In my short time with you, I'd like to answer the following questions if you'd allow. So these will be our guiding questions for our presentation today. First, what are examples of microaggressions in the K-12 setting? How can the educator recognize and eliminate the use of microaggressions? And how can the educator assist their fellow educators in replacing that hurtful language? So those are the questions that are going to guide us through our presentation today. Before we begin those guiding questions, I'd like to ask for your thoughtful consideration. I want to honor your comfort, but also recognize that in this presentation, if you see yourself or perhaps a version of yourself you don't care to familiarize yourself with, that is okay. This is a safe space and you are here to learn and to grow. And I really appreciate your willingness to listen. So, microaggressions are words or phrases that are spoken that reinforce stereotypes. One way this may manifest is jokes. Hopefully, we all agree that jokes about race, gender identity, or sexual orientation are never appropriate, but in the K-12 environment, unfortunately, some stakeholders in the educational field may find making jokes at a student's expense is a way to express a power trip that they may have. Unfortunately, that is something that does happen. So these are some examples of jokes that are reinforcing some stereotypes. Sometimes microaggressions might also come on as compliments, quote unquote compliments. While compliments like these that are listed may be well intentioned, they're still perpetuating stereotypes that are harmful. So you must be great at math, or you're so well spoken. These are things that may have the greatest intentions, but are still harmful. They perpetuate stereotypes. So, if something you've heard previously felt familiar to something you've said in the past, I want to honor that it may not feel very good. But it's important to realize a few things. Firstly, you're not a broken person. You're not an irredeemable person for committing a microaggression. But it is my hope that we grow as educators. And secondly, I want you to realize that the victim of the microaggression has felt hurt from these words. So here are some actionable steps. In the future, do compliment actions rather than behavior, right? I love your effort on this math test. If you compliment actions, right, rather than behavior. Do recognize and apologize if you have hurt, but don't become defensive to correction. You're learning, and if someone has corrected you on something you said, it is okay. You're not broken, you're not irredeemable. Just don't become defensive about it. Apologize. It is my hope that this presentation has equipped you to identify microaggressions with our students and our colleagues. And I'd like to offer some advice in helping others learn what you learned. So, do explain how words can hurt over time, like a paper cut. One of them is not awful, but piling them on and on and on can lead to some real hurt. Do honor uncomfort in others. Like I've said, you are not a broken person, but I do expect growth. And don't take voice away from marginalized groups. It's important to recognize when it's your turn. Okay, if you're a teacher, you know that any PD worth its salt has something to take with you. So I have an activity. This is not mine. This comes from the resource at the end. So all you need is one piece of red construction paper, which I don't have. So I took white printer paper and colored it red, and I shaped it into the shape of a heart. So you can do this with your students in a community circle or just an activity at their desks, but you have a red construction paper heart, because it doesn't have to be red. You have a construction paper heart. And notice how nice and non-crinkled and smooth and pretty this heart is. Now, what you do is you ask your students to share a time when their feelings may have been hurt or when their heart may have been hurt. And every time you call on a student, and students will have these feelings and emotions, all you do is crinkle, you fold the heart just a little bit, and then you ask another student to share. And that student shares of a time that they were hurt. And then another student shares a time they were hurt, and you crinkle the heart a little bit. And another student, and you fold it. And you continually ask students to share times when they were hurt, and you crinkle the heart. And you realize that each of these times where their heart was hurt doesn't affect the heart that much. Every single time really doesn't affect the heart. But if we continue the whole time, eventually you will have a heart that has been crumpled, really hurt. Then you offer the students a chance to shout out times where their heart has been filled. Something nice has happened to them. Someone said something nice to them. And every time that happens, you uncrinkle the heart. Every time a student shares something that is kind or makes them feel good, you uncrinkle the heart. And eventually, you have your heart back. But as you can see, you can still see the remnants of where the heart was hurt. And that's the analog of microaggressions. No one of them destroyed the heart. But as we kept hurting and hurting and hurting our hearts, we were left with a damaged heart. So, I hope you take that activity and run with it. Thank you so much for your attention. I know it's a valuable commodity. I really hope you were able to walk away with a piece of information or a new thought or a new way of looking at things. Thank you so much for your valuable time, and thank you, Dr. Bawa. And now I'd like to introduce my colleague Kelly to talk about microaggressions in the higher education setting. So take it away, Kelly.